Welcome to CSGuitars, the science of loud. There are two sides to restoring anything. We're all familiar with the idea of taking something old and making it look as new as possible. YouTube is full of that kind of restoration video, and they're incredibly satisfying to watch and pretty straightforward tasks to accomplish. A more challenging aspect of restoration is ensuring that something old continues to look old despite new repairs and replacement parts. If we have an old instrument that needs work, we don't want our new work to stand out as such. We want it to blend in so that the casual observer can't tell it's been repaired. That brings me to my Gibson Les Paul Gold Top. This is a 98 classic model, and all of the age and patina on here is genuine from over 2 decades of being played. Well, that's not entirely true. Some of these parts are not like the others. They're brand new, made to look as old as the rest of the instrument. Regular viewers familiar with this guitar will already have spotted what has changed, but for the rest of you, I wonder if you can guess which of these parts are original and which were installed only a couple of weeks ago. If I've done my job correctly, then everything should look consistent and it might be difficult to guess. So when you look at that worn bridge and tailpiece, you might think that those are over 20 years old, and you'd be completely correct. It's the pickups that are new. So let me show you my process of how I made them look like they always were part of this late 90s guitar. I picked up a couple of modern PAF humbucker kits from allegory.co.uk, who carry a lot of excellent quality pickup and electronic parts for guitars. The intention is to wind a set of PAF style pickups for this instrument. Despite being styled like a 1960s Les Paul, these classic models included Gibson's modern ceramic humbuckers, which are a lot higher output than the pickups from the 60s. PAF stands for Patent Applied For, referring to the original humbucking pickups Gibson used in their guitars in the late 50s and early 60s, a period of time after filing for the patent number, but before officially receiving the patent from the patent office. Much like Gibson's early P90s, the first PAFs didn't stick too rigidly to a single defined design. The coils would be wound to varying numbers of turns, and the magnets used were of inconsistent strengths, which led to the interesting situation of every original PAF being different, some sounding much better than others. The total DC resistance of PAFs can range anywhere from 7.5 kiloohms to 8.5 kiloohms, and while Gibson would eventually settle on Alnico 5 as their magnet of choice, this was not a specific requirement at the outset, and many of the magnets may well have been weaker. For anyone trying to perfectly replicate the original PAFs, there are other considerations to be made. Original PAFs were all 49.2mm spacing, compared to the modern standard of 52mm and 50mm for bridge and neck respectively. They would be wound with plain enamel wire, which has a thinner insulation than modern equivalents, which allows the coils to be packed slightly closer together, which subtly changes their inductance. Unpotted coils will also be microphonic in operation, and they would use maple spacers, which, while having no impact over the pickup's performance, are a visual hallmark of the originals. However, I have no interest in trying to accurately replicate the specifics of the originals. I want to aim for a similar performance using modern parts and techniques, which means I'll be winding the bridge unit to be on the hotter side of the range, closer to that 8.5 kiloohms, and using an Alnico 4 magnet, which is effectively a slightly weakened Alnico 5, hopefully emulating the weakening an Alnico 5 would have experienced since the 50s. The neck unit will be closer to the 7.5 kiloohms end of the range, and will use an Alnico 2 magnet, which gives a mellower, smoother sound, which many of the original magnets may well have been anyway. The coils in each will be slightly mismatched as the originals would have been, but I will be potting these. Whatever tonal advantages are gained from not potting pickups are far outweighed by their microphonic behaviour and tendency to feed back. Sounding old is only one part of the story. I need these to look like they've been on the guitar since it was made. These shiny new nickel covers are going to look pretty silly on an instrument where all the other metal parts have dulled and worn with time. This requires some accelerated aging to bring these covers in line with the cosmetic condition of the rest of the instrument. Relicking parts is an art form. We want to generate the illusion that these parts are genuinely old and have aged in the same manner that old parts would have aged. That means we can't just attack these randomly with a hammer and chemicals and expect to get convincing results. There's a big difference between relic and damage. The first part of the process is taking a good look at the existing metal parts and analysing what kind of wear they have. How much has the plating dulled? Are there any points where the plating has worn through to the base metal? Do we see any scratches or dents? We want the aging of the pickup covers to match the aging here. The patina on the bridge and tailpiece are relatively even. There are no deep scratches or dents, but we can see some areas under the picking hand which are more worn than the rest of the plating. These are the characteristics that we want to carry across to the covers. Looking at the old pickups, we can get an indication of how they have worn. We can see where the plastic has rounded over with regular contact from a pick while strumming at the neck position. There is also an interesting bit of damage to both the pickups and the pickup rings, where the low E string has forcefully made contact, leaving deep dents. This should be reflected in the covers to sell the illusion that these pickups were installed when that happened. I've marked the areas of interest with a Sharpie on both covers and will begin the percussive and abrasive elements of aging. Using an E string and fretting hammer, I can replicate the impact points of the string, which will line up with the pickup ring. Fine steel wool, sanding sticks and abrasive erasers are used to add small surface scratches and wear to the covers. The intention is not to cause deep scratches, but just very light, almost imperceptible surface imperfections to break the unity of the nickel coating, which is important for the following chemical process. This is targeted to be more focused on areas where hands or guitar picks would have made regular contact. Genuinely old pickup covers would not have had even wear, so neither should these. With the surfaces broken in, we can now begin the chemical processes. I'm going to start with white vinegar, which is my secret weapon in restoration work. Any rusted parts can be submerged in the liquid, which will quickly soften the corrosion, and they can be polished up to a like new condition. But in this case, I won't be dipping the parts. I'm suspending them above a vinegar pool in a sealed container. This forms an acid fume chamber. The vinegar fumes will work to dull the nickel surface, eating at areas more heavily abrased than those that aren't. This dulling is only the beginning, a base coat if you like, to give a more convincing result to what comes next. Ferric chloride is an etchant solution designed to quickly and effectively eat through copper, rust steel and chemically alter any metal it comes in contact with. The solution is at a concentration which will easily etch printed circuit boards. It's fairly aggressive stuff, so we need to be careful and work quickly unless we want to dissolve the metal entirely. I start with a dampened paper towel, dipped in the solution to give a slight dilution, wiped onto the covers and immediately sprayed off with water. The seconds the etchant was in contact were enough to bring the nickel surface to its desired look. A cotton swab is used to apply ferric chloride directly to areas where skin oils are making prolonged contact. This is painted on, left for a few seconds and sprayed down. It's important to work up to the final look in several light passes. This will not only give the most convincing result, but also helps prevent going too heavy all at once and ruining the part. The screw heads were scratched up and dipped into the solution. We want to protect the threads of the screws and only affect the visible areas. These can be left for as long as required to achieve the desired look. All of the parts were then washed in soap and water to clean off any acid, stopping the reaction, and then dried thoroughly before moving on. As a final touch, I want to buff these covers with some guitar polish and a microfiber cloth. It's clear from the other parts that despite age dulling the metal, this instrument has been cleaned and polished regularly. The metal parts are shiny and smooth. Polishing won't take away the patina, but it certainly will change the surface from looking rough to looking shiny. Recently, I've been getting back into old habits. I used to sketch and paint a lot when I was younger, using charcoal and acrylics as my main media, focusing on portraiture and wildlife. Now that I'm rebuilding those skills, I want to learn techniques that I never quite got the hang of the first time around, like watercolour and landscape, so I've been making a lot of use of Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creators covering topics like photography and video editing, graphic design and illustration, music production, and of course, fine art. These classes are all curated specifically for learning, so you won't have to suffer the interruption of adverts, and there's new original content being created all of the time. I've been really enjoying nature illustrator Rosalie Hazlett's class Watercolour Your World, which has some inspiring techniques for getting outdoors and capturing landscapes in a sketchbook. Of course, if you'd rather brush up on your indoor gardening or graphic design, Skillshare has classes for those too. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial, which is plenty of time to learn a lot of new skills. So what are you waiting for? Get lost in your creativity with Skillshare. The pickups were then constructed, screwing in the pole pieces and soldering up the wires, and then the covers soldered into place. They were then wax potted and installed into the guitar. Comparing the covers to the original parts, I think I've come very close to the same look of the metal. Certainly at a distance, and in these videos, most people seeing this wouldn't realise these weren't the original pickups. I'm most happy with the bridge cover. It came out with an area that was still a little shiny, and the hand contact area is more grey. The levels of variation make it look extremely convincing. The neck pickup is perhaps a little too homogeneous. It's ended up very even, and there are a couple of small areas where I went too heavy with the ferric chloride and it ate through the nickel plating completely. We do see similar at the bridge and tailpiece where the plating has worn through to the metal beneath, so it's still in keeping with the look of the instrument, but it just goes to show how quickly that etchant can go too far. These covers will continue to age naturally from this point on, and any tells that this age was artificially achieved will blend out with time. I'm happy with this result. I think they match the visual energy of the guitar far better than the uncovered pickups, and anyone who sees this guitar in future who hasn't seen this video probably won't be able to spot that these pickups aren't original, and they also sound pretty good too. Like I said before, this sort of accelerated aging is a necessary skill to learn for maintaining and restoring guitars. I don't claim to be the best at it, nor am I very well practiced in this art, but I think the results achieved here do what they need to do to sell the illusion that all the parts on this guitar are the same age and have gone through the same battles. I'm much happier with both how this guitar looks and sounds now, and you'll be sure to see it a lot more in future videos. Don't forget to click all the buttons you're supposed to make this video viable to the ever-changing whims of the YouTube algorithm. That's all for now. Keep it loud and stay safe. But now what am I going to do with these?